viewers and listeners, to the Health Revolution, the program that shows you how to have a life of vibrant well-being. In a world full of noisy health trends, we bring you clarity. In a sea of fads, we reveal the science-backed strategies that truly work. We explore physical strength, emotional resilience, and mental mastery. These are the keys to an enriched life. Join us for inspiring interviews with champions who conquered life's health challenges, fueling your journey. Are you ready to unlock your potential? To live with vitality and purpose? Then join the Health Revolution. I'm your host, Adriana Morrison, health and fitness expert, speaker, and a mom who understands. Let's embark on this transformative quest. Together, we're about to change the game, starting now. The information provided in this show is intended for educational and entertainment purposes only. Viewers should use their own discretion and consult with a healthcare professional for personalized guidance and recommendations. Welcome, everybody, to the Health Revolution. We are so excited that you joined us today. I'm your host, Adriana Morrison, and no matter which way you're tuning into us, please do not forget to hit the subscribe button. Also, at the bottom of your screen, there's a little tab that says Show Note. In it, you're going to find some very pertinent and relevant information pertaining to today's episode that you are going to want to be aware of. So this is fantastic as we're continuing to roll into 2024 and we're applying goals and we're reaching for greatness. You know, a lot of times it means doing what's required, the incremental steps, the step-by-step, the guidance. Sometimes they're grandiose steps that we think we need to take, and sometimes it's the smaller steps that allow us to reach success. And I'm excited about my guest today. And as we introduce you to him, take a look at this. Clint Callahan is a visionary life coach and founder of Small Changes, Big Impact. Clint's unique philosophy centers around the power of incremental progress. He has inspired countless individuals to realize their full potential, emphasizing that small, consistent changes lead to significant life transformations. His approach goes beyond goal achievement. Clint focuses on sustainable self-improvement, fostering well-being and balance. He's a guiding force for those navigating life's challenges, offering practical advice and compassionate support. I'm excited to introduce to you Clint Callahan. Clint, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Thanks for asking. You know, I love that you are in this space because mindset is so huge, not only in conquering fears and the obstacles we think that we are in front of us that are facing, but reaching for greater. And I'm curious a little bit about your backstory. I know there's that personal piece behind the man that you are today. What led you to take on the role and the type of coach that you are?
Sure. Well, I've been a therapist now for 23 years, and I recently transitioned to life coaching for about the last year. And the things that led here was not very different and dissimilar from a lot of people. When I was growing up, I was bullied a lot as a kid, so I really had to learn emotional resilience through that and just trying to understand, like, why, and that was the main question that started this conversation that I've had. And then I had therapy when I was 12 years old, which really kind of opened my eyes to the fact that there's words to describe what was going on with me, the way I was feeling. And I was then able to understand, as I was able to understand that, it then led me into wanting to become a therapist and become a life coach to help other people recognize and figure out these things that plague us, these fears that are ancient, that stay within us and that get followed through for our entire life, that we can beat them and we can change them, but that often it seems so insurmountable. So that's why I wanted to start doing the really small changes and with the big impact stuff, because that helps to teach people that it doesn't need to be, every single second of every day. It can be as little as 5 minutes at a time, 15 minutes at a time, that you can begin to make changes in your life, because it really is about what you think. It's the story that you tell yourself that defines what happens in your life. And we are the authors, whether we know it or not.
Was there a time in your life where it changed the trajectory of the profession that you're in? Was there a moment in which it was so profound that it stayed with you as as lessons to learn from?
Early on in my career, it was I didn't know how to have good boundaries because I am a recovering people pleaser and I have been working on that for pretty much my whole life. And being a therapist tends to give you this feeling of, oh, I need to save people from themselves. But the hardest lessons I've learned are that no, I can't. I can't want it more than you do. And that's the thing that really has been a lesson that stuck with me throughout my career and has really helped shape who I am and how I am as a life coach and as a therapist, because my job is not to get you to care. My job is to help you find things to care about and then move towards them.
Why do you think it's so hard to accomplish that where we are in life? I mean, we have the obvious defining moments in which are part of our history, but why
Mhm.
is it's easier said than done? Can you speak about that and see and explain why, as a society, it just we get hung up on being able to do that?
Yeah. I mean, really, it comes back to it's anthropologically speaking, our brain hasn't changed for about 300 odd thousand years. So our hardware and our software is grossly out of date for the world that we live in. Because the world that we live in is one of, for most people, in at least in first world countries and second world countries, safety and security, where we don't have to work 18 to 20 hours a day to just survive every day, but our body and our brain is still wired for that world. And so when we're in the world and we're trying to do these things, our body is reacting as if it's 150,000 years ago and we're going to be attacked at any moment from any number of threats. And so because of that, we often get stuck in that fear-based cycle where the easiest lesson is like if your boss sends you an email at 9 a.m. saying we need to talk today at 1, your first thought process for most people is, oh no, what did I forget? What did I miss? What did I screw up? Oh my gosh, I'm going to be fired. If I get fired, and that means I don't have a house. I can't feed my kids. I can't pay my bills. I'm going to be dead in a week. And that's your body and your brain working against you. But what people don't recognize is that most most stuff starts from the neck down because 80% of the story that gets created here starts in our body. So if you can learn to control your body and the fear sensations that are ancient in your body that are saying there's physical danger, the more we're able to then take that step back and take that breath, change the story, and then change the reaction to whatever's happening around us.
Do you think we're growing with each generation that just comes forth and becomes the newer generation, or what patterns have you seen with that?
Man, I sure hope so. I sure hope so. But yeah, so far what I've seen, when I started, I used to work when I was living in California back in around 2004, 2005. I worked in San Francisco in the Castro district, which is a lot of LGBTQ, transgendered movement, all those things that happened there. And if you'd have told me at that time that the world would be this way today, where people are able to pick their pronouns and have different choices and make and have different kind of relationship styles and talk about the way they feel or don't feel about who they are and what they want to be, I would have said there's no way. We're not ready for that. But yet in this last, what's it been? That's been like 15, 16 years now.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
massive amount of change in just the way that we can express ourselves as people, which is, I think, it's an amazing and fantastic thing. Because if you had told me then, I would have been like, we're not ready. But it just goes to show that with all the ability to connect more now in multiple different ways through multiple different platforms, that is the good side of all this technology and all this new connection that we have, is that we're able to have these deeper, more meaningful discussions of what does it actually mean to be human.
Are we having meaningful discussions these days, or or is there still a struggle, or maybe it looks different
Hmm.
today?
That's a really good question. I have meaningful discussions every day, but that's my job. So, it makes it a little easy for me to be biased. But I'd say for a society as a whole, we are. Yes, there is the 24-hour news cycle, which is a lot of it is rooted in fear. I haven't found a news outlet yet that does everything positive and wonderful and talks about all the good stuff that's happening. But at the same time, there is that stuff too. You can find that stuff if you look for it, which allows us to have these conversations, even if it's just private Facebook groups, even if it's, going and joining a life coaching group or joining these different, the different groups that are out there, like, like NAMI, LGBTQ groups, all these different things where you can find like-minded people. You can create a deeper discussion and you can have that. But it's one of those things that we have to want it. We still have to struggle and sometimes fight for these lessons to be learned by everybody so that we can just come together as a people, as instead of just as a race or as a country or as even a city or a state. It's recognizing that we're all on spaceship Earth. This is all we know. There's nothing else but this, and yet we're treating it as if it's never going to end. And we don't know, because 4.6 billion years, that's a long time. We don't know what's come before us. We have 5,100 and some odd years of recorded history. That's it. We don't know the other 4.5 billion plus years that there was before us.
That's true. And you mentioned, and we're making mention that you've been a therapist for that's one of the roles. Visionary life coach is the other one that that you're very proud of. As you are working with others, what are some of the concerns, the trends that you're noticing that you're hearing more and more that maybe might be surprising to those of us who are not having these conversations with a therapist?
The things that I see that most often are we are more depressed, we are more anxious, and we are also more aware of our depression and our anxiety. But also we can now recognize also the trauma, the big T trauma and little t trauma that we all experience throughout the course of our life. But now I hope we're in a golden age of mental health care, and that it is beginning that transformation because of the way COVID impacted the whole world, that it allowed us now to do this kind of therapy with people, where I can now talk to people all over Colorado and in California, because I'm licensed in both states, where I can talk to, and with the life coaching all over the world, where I can do these things and I can talk to people about multiple different things in multiple different ways that before we didn't have that access or the ability to go find someone that actually has the education and the knowledge and the experience to help us walk through these difficult times. Because let's face it, the world is, and especially in America, it's becoming more divided because we are more fearful than ever, because that's what the world is pumping out at us. I mean,
Do you
I stopped watching the news 3 years ago because of that.
Do you think that we're more divided because, the fear of the unknown? Or are you feeling like you're getting that vibe when you're hearing others talk about the things that are unsettling to them?
Mm-hmm. It's a combination of both. It is the fear of the unknown, because that's where fear comes from. Is if you don't know, you're going to be afraid of it, because that's how our body is wired. Is the unknown is what fear is described as. When you really think about it, it's why are we afraid of most things? Well, because we don't know what the outcome is going to be. We don't have that foresight to know, oh, if I make this choice, it's all going to turn out great. We don't know. So we do our best. But when it comes to those insights, the deeper insights that we have now, just about people and about the way things are, it also is causing those problems, because there's a lot of unknown around that. There's a lot of ambiguity around things, and that is causing a lot of the stress and issues that we have today.
You brought up that COVID is one of those
Mm-hmm.
moments in world history that changed everything. What are some of the surprising findings that you've come outside of the physical concerns that have come up
Mm-hmm.
and that become a little bit of a touchy topic,
Yeah.
but in terms of mental health, and what have been some of the surprising trends that come out of us being in COVID and then
Mm-hmm.
moving and stepping away from how 2020 was?
Yeah. So one of the things is that for a lot of people, when it came to COVID, it was just the stark lack of contact with other people. And most people don't really think about that as a mental health problem. But we, as again, 300,000 years of evolutionary history, say we are groups of people. We are more comfortable in a group of around 25 to 100 people than we are being in front of 100,000 people or a million people, because that's how we've been wired. Maybe in 300,000 years, it'll be different. But right now, we're still wired that way. But what COVID did is it showed us that that human connection, having someone sitting in front of you, having that deep conversation with someone when you can feel their energy, because the energy that you have when you're around another person, you can feel it. This is a good close second. The fact that Zoom was able to connect us in ways that we never expected, the fact that we were able to have those kind of connections that way as well, I think that saved a lot of people from having major mental health crises, because isolation gets you so stuck in your own head that you begin to question reality. And that's one of the things that really happened for a lot of people, is they became so isolated that they got stuck in these echo chambers that we've created over the course of the last decade or so, of these different social media apps and these different things that got us stuck. And then it's hard to get out of that, because once you get stuck in a group of people that say and think the way you do, who doesn't want to be a part of that? So then it stopped the ability for us to have just a reasonable, calm, multifaceted discourse. It's easier just to go where everybody thinks the same.
So so in terms of your us emerging out of COVID, do you think that
Mhm.
isolation and obviously it varies from one person to the next of how we all came through, but
Mhm.
do you think that affected coping skills and just was there ever a temporary do you feel like the trend has been we had a temporary adjustment to it, or do you feel like
Mhm.
there's more long-term coping issues that come up out of
Mhm.
us moving away from COVID?
There's going to be long-term issues. We just don't know what they are yet, for especially for the younger generation, because for the kids that had to start their schooling on in an online based environment, they missed those very crucial first several years of being able to have that connection and understanding of what it's like to be with another group of like 5, 10, 12, 15 kids, and then having someone trying to manage them. They missed that piece. So then when they got out of COVID, and now it's, they're in first or second grade, and they're trying to adapt to being in a room where it's lousy, where it's loud, it's noisy, it's all these different things that happen, and you get distracted. They didn't have that, because if they didn't want to, they could just click mute. They could just turn off their camera. They could do these different things. But in the real world, you can't mute people. I mean, yet, I mean, they may be coming out with it. I don't know, but I hope not.
Well, I mean, I guess for those that it's hard to communicate with, I guess that could be a convenient thing. But no, you are right. We have, with four kids, I think the only thing that was the saving grace was that the interaction amongst
Mhm.
the kids, but the impact had been is just we're still you're right about it being still reeling and story developing. You mentioned switching gears a little bit.
Mhm.
So I thought it was interesting that you're very proud of the term visionary life coach. What is that? Can you tell us a little bit about what that means to you and how do you represent your space in helping others?
So the way I think about life coaching is it's an extension of my therapy practice, but I also have to be very, very careful because of licensing and all that kind of stuff. And I like keeping my job and stuff too. But it's those kind of things that what I've noticed is that in the life coaching space, there's a lot of well-meaning and well-intentioned people, but also I have 23 years of clinical practical experience, which is a completely different way of looking at the world. And that's really all it is that all I'm trying to do is present a different aspect, a different facet of how to look at things. Because my job as a life coach or my job as a therapist, what I consider my job as a human being, is not to tell other people what they're doing is right or wrong, but to help them figure out where they want to go, how they want to get there, and what works best for them. And that's one of the things that can be that can be very limiting, because when I was trained as a therapist, it was my job was I'm supposed to be the expert. But I learned very, very quickly, no, I'm not. I am not the expert. The only person that is the expert is you. You are the expert in your life. My job is just to try to help you craft the narrative that you want for your life so that you can feel like you're getting the most out of it. Because as far as I know, this is all we got. So we might as well make the best of it.
I like that. We're going to take a commercial break. We will be right back. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back after this.
Welcome to E360 TV, the live streaming and on-demand destination for influential voices and enlightened audiences. We offer trending, grassroots, and purpose-driven content across a diverse range of interests. E360 TV is more than just watching programs. We offer the ability to interact with live shows connecting audiences to real, authentic influencers and storytellers while streaming to millions of devices. Real experiences. Raw conversations. One destination for it all. E360 TV.
As we get older, we must put more focus on strength training instead of keeping the primary focus on cardio. The human body begins to lose muscle mass and bone mineral density on a gradual basis once we enter our 40s and beyond. Regular strength training can improve our strength and flexibility. It can also boost your metabolism by increasing your metabolic rate. A functional benefit from strength training is the decreased risk of falls and injuries. There are a variety of different ways that you can utilize strength training approaches. You can do bodyweight exercises, you can use free weights, resistance bands or loop bands, weight machines, and even suspension equipment, to give you a few examples. As always, make sure that you are cleared by your doctor and are aware of any limitations that are part of your movement. And this is your Fit Bite for today. Welcome back to the Health Revolution. Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Adriana Morrison. My guest today, Clint Callahan, life coach and therapist, and we are talking about making the right changes so that we can create that quality of life. And Clint, as we were going to break, one of the things that came to mind for me is just the idea behind small changes, big impact. Can you talk a little bit about how that came to be for you, and then the power of incremental changes?
Sure. So small changes, big impact came to me because I was profoundly burned out about 16 years ago, 17 years ago. I went through a major burnout. And what I found was that I went to therapy, I took medication, I did all the things that the system and that the medical system told me to do, and it didn't make anything better. And so I really had to stop and figure out, well, what is this thing? What am I going through? What's actually happening? What I found out is that burnout, at least in my opinion, is not what you think it is. It's actually a systemic collapse in a variety of areas in your life. It happens to you gradually. The first thing that you feel is this social withdrawal. That's the first red flag that I felt, is that I wanted to be alone more. I didn't want to connect. I dodged social events. I didn't want to spend time with people. And that was the beginning that I was inching towards burnout. And the next thing that happened was I began self-care neglect. I didn't shower as much. I wasn't eating good food. I was just becoming lazy at caring for myself. And that is one of the first parts that you're starting to really begin to get into the second phase of burnout. Then the next thing that happened for me was relationship strain. My relationship with my wife, with my friends, with my family, they all began to deteriorate because I just became detached, because I didn't want to burden them. It's the most common thought that people that are going through depression or burnout or any kind of mental health crisis is, I don't want to burden the people around me. And then the last thing that happened was it started to affect my work. And once it started to affect my work, that's when you really know that you're becoming mentally and emotionally disconnected. So it made you decide that I want to quit my job. If I get a different job, I'll do better. If I just do these other things, it'll help me and I will improve and I'll do these things. But it doesn't work that way. And that's one of the hardest things about dealing with burnout and with those kind of things is that it is so gradual that you yourself sometimes don't even notice that you're there until it's too late. And that's why my mission with this is I just want to teach people that burnout is different than depression. It's different than anxiety. It has aspects of depression, it has aspects of anxiety, but it's one of those things that as you go through that, you really need to learn and change how you begin to focus on yourself. And it always starts with you. It starts with your own personal self-care. And in today's world, that is one of the most difficult things to do because we've been trained by our cell phones, by the way the world is now, to always be on. So we are now in a time lack scarcity mindset that affects us every single day. And because of that, it's really learning how to take back control of your time and your personal space and create better boundaries for your life in all different areas.
First of all, I got to commend you for sharing that this was an experience that you had, that the decline and where you were turned out to be where it was, and the fact that you are transparent about this. Was there any point in time when it slowly began to affect different areas of your life where you knew it was happening? Was there like any sort of sign and then you found yourself brushing it off, or did it get to the point where work was affected and then it became an eye opener?
So for me, the biggest thing was first part was the self-care piece because my wife, of course, was like, "You smell. When's the last time you took a shower? Like, why are you wearing the same clothes 3 days in a row?" Because at the time, they didn't have virtual therapy, so all my therapy that I was doing was on the phone. So my clients couldn't see me. They couldn't see if I was clean shaven or dressed or any of that kind of stuff. I could just talk to people on the phone all day. That's what I did. And so that when that happened, it was like, I'm like, oh no, I'm just tired. We're just, because we just had a newborn. So my oldest son, who's now 14 at the time, was the perfect excuse for why I was so tired. It wasn't me. I'm a new father. Obviously, I'm exhausted all the time because my kid keeps me up all hours of the night. So it couldn't be me. It has to be this new thing that I did that caused this issue. So that was the first part. And then it really started, then I really noticed it started leaking into just my ability to be a father, to be a husband, to be connected to my family was just, I just didn't want to. I was so tired at the end of the day because just getting out of bed was a chore. It felt like I got out of bed. I was great for 1 minute. And then it was like a giant suit of armor dropped on me and I was exhausted for the rest of the day. So I got about a minute of relief every morning. And that was the best minute every day was that. And then from there, that's when that's when the exhaustion just kept happening. And then of course, being the father of a newborn, it didn't help that I wasn't sleeping well. It didn't help that I wasn't eating well. It didn't help that I couldn't work out or do any of the things that I used to do because I was just so exhausted and fried. I just couldn't. My brain just kept telling me, just stop. You don't have to. It's fine. You don't need to do this. And eventually it got to the point where I had to stop and ask myself the question I still ask myself is, every day is, why am I doing this? What do I want to get out of this thing called life? Is this the kind of man I want to be? Is this the kind of husband I want to be? Is this the kind of father I want to be? Who am I trying to be? And it's been one of the guiding principles that I continue to follow to this day is I really began to go back and I went back to my Buddhist roots. And that's kind of the thing that started this process of my 15 minutes a day and how it can change your life.
So I have to ask, do you find that was there pressures, internal and maybe societal pressures of you being a man, being a father, having all the roles that you have? Do you find that it's a trend among men that it's just something that is an internal struggle? Maybe these are pressures, elements that are part of what you're navigating through?
Well, I definitely agree that it is a societal thing because I'm 47, so I grew up so I was trained by my dad who grew up in the 50s. And, it's all those kind of things, right? Is one of the things that I often tell my clients is that my job as a parent and your job as a parent is to teach your kids how to live in a world that you know nothing about. Because every generation, the world is completely changed by the time you have kids. I mean, I didn't have to deal with internet bullying, Snapchat, Facebook, all these different things that my kids have to navigate every day, but I have to know enough about them to try to provide some kind of guidance. And it's in those moments, right, that you recognize, oh, wow, I'm literally a generation behind. And so you do your best, but you also know that it's going to be a struggle because my kids know this stuff better than I do. So I have to do double to try to even keep up with them.
I
And
know
it's
the
those,
feeling.
yeah, and it's those processes, right, that as you go through these things, that's the stuff that kind of starts to pull you out of this thing called life. Because the thing about human beings is we love routine and we hate routine simultaneously. We don't want to be bound by it, but at the same time, when we're knocked out of it, we don't like it. Something feels off, something feels weird. And so as we go through that, it's how do you change your mindset and change your routine? And what's the best way to make those changes so that you can take that breath, make that change, recognize the issue, recognize the problem before it becomes a big problem. Because that's one thing why I focused so much on burnout, is that when people think of burnout, they only think of it in the work capacity. But burnout is not just about work. It starts very early on in your own personal life with regards to how you perceive the world and what your role is in the world and what you're supposed to do. And that's definitely the thing that happened to me is I'm the man, I'm the father, I'm the head of the household, I'm the one who's supposed to have all the answers, all the things, right? And it's like, no, the answer is no. None of us have all the answers. If there's one thing that I've learned doing this and being alive for 47 years is we're all making it up as we go along. And anybody that tells you they have the answer, you too can have the answer for 1995.
That's true. There's truth behind that,
Yes.
the reality, and I love how you're saying that where we are in some of the things that maybe we tell ourselves how things are supposed to be or I'm supposed to
Mm-hmm.
handle, and then your experience saying this to yourself as a man helping to lead your family. What
Mm-hmm.
are some of the what are some statements or some check-in
Mm-hmm.
statements a person can use to just double check to see where they're at and maybe do like inventory
Mm-hmm.
of where they need to go and how things are.
Yeah. So the first question that I ask myself every day is, does this get me closer to my goal? Because if you don't know where you're going, if you don't know what your goal is, if you don't know what you're trying to achieve, then how can you ever get there? It's like turning on Google Maps, not putting in the destination and being mad at it for not taking you where you want it to take you. And that's one of the things that I really try to get people to understand is setting goals needs to be not just about I want the pie in the sky mountaintop goal. You need that. But what you also need is you need the daily thing that you do to get you closer. And that's going to adjust and change every day based on all these different things. And also building in failure points, building in stumbling blocks, building in these periods when you're trying to work through your goals where you know that I'm sick, I don't have the energy, I don't feel like it, I don't want to do it, whatever it is. I have 3 cheat days that I call them every month. If I don't want to do my goals, I don't have to. Because but what I also found is I rarely use them because I like it now. I'm so used to it and I got so used to it. But knowing they're there is this comfortable feeling of if I don't have to, I don't have to. It's great. But I'm still meeting my goal because it's a part of the goal.
And so the power of incremental changes, how do you conceptualize that or how do you paint the
Mm-hmm.
picture for someone who has not embraced that concept to grow
Mm-hmm.
from where they are?
So I'll use myself as an example. So when I was first struggling with trying to get out of burnout, I didn't really know what to do. I didn't know how to do it because I went to therapy and therapy said, oh, just take a vacation, just change your job, just reduce your hours, just do these different things, which is all the stuff that we're told. And I'm like, well, I've done those things and none of those things worked. They didn't make me feel any better. I still feel exhausted all the time. Oh, well, go on medication. That'll make you feel better. Okay, I went on Wellbutrin. I did that for about 5 years. It did help a little bit, but it didn't solve the problem. So all these different things that you're going through, you have to figure out, well, what's something that I can change? And it first comes down to the story you tell yourself. So, but first you have to figure out, what is the story? There's so much chatter going on inside of our brains at any given time. Figuring out what you're actually telling yourself is one of the most monumental tasks. So the first thing I had to do is I had to figure out, well, how do I do that? Well, because I had no time, because I was a new parent, and because I was lucky to get 5-10 minutes alone at a time, I went back to meditation. And meditation is not the 6-hour Buddhist sitting on a thing waiting for the lotus blossom to open up in front of you. I had to do it 3 minutes of meditation with 2 minutes of journaling. And I did that 3 times a day. And the reason why I did it 3 times a day was to help me stay on track throughout the course of my day. And every day that I did that, it shifted and changed the way that I perceived what was going on around me, because all reality is our perception. It's the story we tell ourselves about what's happening now. So if you can take that step back and get just even a brief glimpse of the third party view of your own life, you can make massive changes. And that's really what it is it's slowing down, taking that breath. And the thing that I often tell people that are new to meditation is, don't tell your brain to shut up. It won't happen. Your brain will never be quiet. Its job is to chatter. That's its job. So all you can do is slow down and listen to, what is it saying? Do you notice any patterns? Is it saying something more than one time? Then that's the stuff I would journal for 2 minutes. And then that's the stuff I would check in at lunch. And then that's the stuff I would check in at dinner. And through that, I began to notice, oh, here's a trigger. Here's a trigger. Here's another trigger. These are the things that are causing me to react the way that I am, which is then making me go through this wonderful thing that we all get stuck in, which is a self-fulfilling prophecy.
And have you been surprised by who benefits most from meditation and journaling? That maybe, just the type of roles. And what I mean by that, I mean, the people in society who just take on certain roles, occupations, certain levels of stress. Is there a surprising outcome for a certain segment of society that truly benefits from it, that we don't realize that can benefit from it?
The people that I found that most surprised me when they finally just give up a little bit of control and will do this are ex-military, police officers, firefighters, EMT, your super type A alpha personalities. When they finally just, I have one client that I have been seeing now for 3 years. He's ex-military, was in for 23 years, 19 deployments, all the stuff. So he's got all the stuff. It took him 7 months to finally begin to do this. And when he did, and the reason why he did it was basically because was tired of me asking him every time, so did you do this? He's finally like, I did it just so you'd be quiet, because I didn't want to hear it again. I'm like, and what happened? Well, I found out that the things that my brain was telling me made absolutely no sense. I'm like, yeah. And what did you think about that? Well, I didn't do them. And then what happened? Well, that changed the way that I interacted with my wife. It changed the way I interacted with my daughter. It changed the way I interacted with myself. And I'm like, okay, so keep doing that for a while and tell me how it goes. He now does it religiously every day. He journals every night. He's actually writing a book about his experiences. He's doing all these different things now because he took the time to stop and just listen to himself. Because it's easy to plug in and listen to everything else, because we have a billion things that want our attention. But stopping and hearing ourselves just for 3 minutes is one of those things that no one thinks of. Because when they think of meditation, they think, oh, I have to sit for 30 minutes. I have to do yoga. I have to do these other things to get me into that space. But if you just take a minute, just start with a minute, just stop, close your eyes, and just breathe in and out and see what comes up. That's all it takes. And if you do that enough times, this will get clear. You'll start to hear things. You'll start to recognize things. And then that will allow you to begin to see the story that you're currently writing in real time and recognize, I don't like where this is going. I need to change it, because you're the only one that can.
That's very surprising, but very profound. Of course, we're going to take a break. Don't go anywhere. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back after this. Thank you so much for watching The Health Revolution. Our show is growing, and it's all thanks to viewers like you. No matter how you found us, please hit the subscribe button so we can stay connected and continue to deliver amazing content to you.
Life is so fragile, and we're constantly reminded just how fragile life can be, especially when we or a loved one is told we have cancer. Cancer survivor myself, I can tell you, we still feel very alone in this journey.
There's a study that's been showing that patients who are socially isolated have a worse prognosis, have a worse outcome than patients who are socially interconnected.
Buddies for Life is a non-profit cancer support group for those whose life has been impacted by cancer. Humor, hope, heart, and hugs.
Humor, hope, heart, hugs, and a whole lot of love.
Share this with your friends and family and support this community in every way you can. No one should face cancer alone.
I am a chemo buddy for life.
We are a buddies network.
No one does cancer alone.
Be a buddy.
And we are all here for you as a community of love.
We are chemo buddies for life.
And if you've heard 3 words, you have cancer, for yourself or someone else, you belong with us at Chemo Buddies for Life.
Healing through connections.
And now we want to give special thanks to Biomed Mobile IV for sponsoring the Health Revolution. Biomed Mobile IV is Colorado's top mobile IV therapy service, servicing throughout the state of Colorado. They offer an array of vitamins and above and beyond safety preparation. Biomed Mobile IV, your dedication to health and wellness is exactly what our show is all about. And we thank you for your support. Welcome back to the Health Revolution. Welcome back to the show. We're having an intriguing conversation and one that we're learning from. My guest today, Clint Callahan. He is a life coach and therapist. And Clint, we were talking about just how to navigate the incremental changes to create that change, to pause, all of that. Now I'm curious about how you've put pen to pad, and you've written a book, and I'd like for us to talk about it.
Sure. I'm more than happy to. What would you like to know?
Well, I know we're going to go ahead and bring your book up and just talk about the small changes, big impact, and just how this has been a resource for those who get their hands on it.
Yep. So basically what this is so the reason why I wrote Small Changes, Big Impact is because I took basically all the stuff I've done for myself, all the things I've done for clients over the years, and I wanted to put it down to give someone like just a structure to follow to help begin to make these changes. Because often the hardest thing to do is first even admitting that you need assistance, that you need some kind of change, that you want some kind of change. Because I've had many people come and see me and not be ready, and that's okay too. But it's finding these moments when you have the ability to stop and take that breath. And so one of the things that this book teaches is it teaches box breathing, which is one of the first things I tend to teach people, because what box breathing does from a scientific point of view is it stops the ancient body fear story that comes up, and it turns it off because it hits you in your parasympathetic nervous system, because that's where fear lives. And so box breathing is you breathe in for 4 seconds, and then you breathe out for 4 seconds. You breathe back in for 4 seconds, and then you breathe out for 4 seconds. And you do that 4 times. And what that does is it tells your body there is no physical danger, because that's where our story often begins with most of our emotions, is it comes from our body. And our body tells us bad stuff's going to happen, because for 295,000 years before the written word, it was hardcore survival. And really that was up until about maybe 200 years ago. It was hardcore survival. You'd work 18 to 20 hours a day to survive, to help your family survive, to do those things. And this is a step-by-step process to help you recognize those triggers within yourself, within your mind, within your body, to help you move through those steps and to recognize these things that you don't need anymore, that these are vestigial emotions. These are things that you don't need, but yet They impact us every second of every day. And it's the thing that changed my life was recognizing that and being able to express that and teach that to different people. This is what you do. You go through, you read, you learn, you think, you figure out your story that you're telling yourself, and you decide if it's true or not. And what you're going to find 99% of the time, the stuff that your brain is telling you is going to happen doesn't.
True. That's very.
Because, go ahead.
No, please. I'm agreeing with you. Please continue.
Because fear is, it just is. It's the thing. It's the thing that still drives us today. And people don't like to hear it. Because one of the things I tell people is there's fear in joy. And they're like, how can there be fear and joy? Aren't those two polar opposite feelings? Yes. But when you've been joyful, when you've been happy, have you ever had the thought, will I ever be this happy again? Have you ever had the thought, will this, how long will this last? That's fear creeping in. Because for human beings, for the last 300,000 years, it's been survival. It's only now in the last 120 odd years, the last 70 years, that we've actually been able to not have to work 18 to 20 hours a day to survive. Now, I could stay in this office for the rest of my life, and Amazon could deliver stuff to my door. Walmart Plus could deliver stuff to my door. It'd probably look kind of funky and smell bad after a while. I could probably get deodorant and soap and stuff. But that's the thing, is we have the ability to do all these amazing things now. And what are we using it for? Watching cat videos, pretty much, but
well, they they kind of lighten the mood watching cat
yes,
videos.
they do. Yes, they do.
I'm curious, how do you help others balance between ambition and the attention that goes to personal well-being and mental health?
The hard thing about that is that's an individual journey. There is no one right answer to give somebody. But I know for myself, it always comes back to asking myself the question, what do I want out of life? Who do I want to be? It always comes back to goal setting. And when people think about goals, they often have been taught a totally different way of looking at goals. They've taught, okay, first figure out what you want to have. Then you can figure out what you need to do to get that. And then when you get it, you will then be the person that you want to be, because now you've become the CEO. You've now become the person running the company, those kind of things. But the problem with that is, for most people, when they get to the have point, it's like all of a sudden there's this cliff and they fall off it and they don't feel like they've accomplished anything. And that's the reason why switching your goals around to make it be, do, have, figuring out first who you want to be, then figuring out the steps that you need to do to be that kind of person, that then gets you what you want to have. But when you get there, there's no cliff, because now you're already there and you know who you are and why you did all the things that you did to get there. Most of the time we don't have that. So teaching people how to realign the way that they view their goals helps them to actually reach their goals more efficiently and feel good about reaching them. Because I've hit goals where I'm like, great, here we are. I met my goal. Awesome. And what's supposed to happen now? I thought, come on, I spent the last 13 years doing everything I could to get my master's at 25. Now what? That's what happens again and again, as we hit those marks and then we fall off the edge. So figuring out who you want to be is the question you have to ask yourself every day. Do you just want to be a really good, solid parent? If that's what you want to be, focus on that. If you want to be a CEO and a titan of industry, focus on that. Whatever you focus on, figure it out, but also always build in space for you to stop and take a breath and ask yourself, is this helping me reach the goal that I'm trying to get to?
I love that. We're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back after this.
Greetings, I'm Angel Marie Monticelli, host of Energize You TV, every Thursday at 11 a.m. Pacific Time. Go to Fresh Takes right here on E360 and get Reikified and energized today.
back to the Health Revolution. My guest today, Clint Callahan, life coach and therapist. Clint, where can viewers find you?
Well, you can find me in my office right now, but no, you can find me online at smallchangesbigimpact.4u on both Facebook and Instagram. You can also find me, you can also find my book on Amazon. Just look for my name, Clint Callahan, and or look up the book title. And then you can also find my book and all kinds of information about me and what I'm doing on my website at smallchangesbigimpact.net. That's .net, not .com. That's what most people get confused. So
.net. And of course, we got it right there for viewers to
right.
remember. Do you have up and coming events, programs, things like that coming up for 2024? Do you have things broken out?
See, right now I'm going to be doing some more podcasts. I'm working on figuring out getting in some speaking engagements and things like that. But mostly I'm out here in Colorado just doing therapy and spending time with my family and doing what I can to spread the message that you can change if you want to. All it takes is 15 minutes a day if you just focus on those 15 minutes and do what you need to do to help you figure out where you want to go and who you want to become. And it's a struggle, and life is a struggle, but you can make those choices to give yourself the best chance to have the best kind of life that you want. And that's the thing that is the most difficult thing, is that figuring out what you want and sticking to it is hard because society will tell you something different. Maybe your friends, maybe your family will tell you something different. But making that choice for yourself is the only way to have the life that you actually want.
I love that. Clint, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your time. We appreciate you just dropping the gems and the takeaways for our audience. I appreciate that.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, and for everyone watching, of course, remember that you can always find us. Our website is www.thehealthrevolutiontv.com. That's where you can stay up to date with all of what we've got coming up. We have a newsletter that you can subscribe to, and if you have any ideas for show ideas, absolutely, you can go ahead and grab your phone and take a look at our QR code for a quick reference. And then, as always, we are on E360 TV on Tuesdays and Thursdays, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, right here. Thank you so much for joining us. Until next time, we will see you then. Take care.